Hello, my friends. Welcome, welcome. In fact, that's the word, welcome. I think that's the transformational word, rather than stop it, control it, suppress it, get rid of it, blame somebody else for it. Instead of that, welcoming is a way of aligning with the world, of receiving what's available for you. And also the act of welcoming, I think in itself diffuses. There are some people who've made their entire career out of welcoming. There's a method called the Sedona method that's really about welcoming, and it's a lovely entryway. And so I wanted to have you just be looking at and experiencing would it be like to welcome whatever's going on in your world right now. And we usually do that from a logical perspective. Well, does it make sense, and can I handle it, and is it too much? And so when we evaluate, but what if you let yourself get curious about what is it like to welcome? And it's so much fun and easy to play with your hands and arms. And so first start with how, when something happens, know, what do you do to try to stop it or make it be different? So do you like, and I think these all go with the fears. So something's going on. And so one of the first things that you can go is, this should not be happening. And, kind of a, ugh. So let yourself notice how, if you do that, if that's one of your specialties, and go ahead and let yourself play with it. Now, there might be something or a whole bunch of things that are going on right now that for which you can choose. So I spent a lot of my life going, this just cannot possibly be happening. I know, and that whole fighty thing. And then I'm just going to go someplace else. I'm just going to go out into watching a new television show, or I'm going to, I'm going to just open up the ice cream, and I'm going to just, so I think of that as a flee move. So let yourself notice how, if there's flee energy going on for you today. And then I think that much of the world is now in a, and so let yourself go ahead and try on freeze. And you might be like responding, like, okay, but there's a place in you that feels very frozen. So it might be like your diaphragm feels frozen. I've been feeling a lot of freezing. It's sort of in my back, and this kind of, going, oh, that kind of, oh. And so letting yourself actually experience that, I think, is really valuable, rather than just thinking about it. And then the other is just overwhelm. So overwhelm is a feint, and letting yourself. So for me, when I get overwhelmed, I my thoughts kind of trail off, and I can't follow them all the way, and my thoughts go from one thing to another, and I can't get myself organized to actually meet that. So notice which of the fear signatures feels up for you today. And I wanted to have you go ahead and go into it. So like for me, it's sort of a combination for me of freeze and faint. It's kind of a whoa. So go ahead and let yourself do that and exaggerate it a little bit. And then let yourself actually open up to, what would it be like to welcome that sensation? To go ahead and let my attention go into it rather than against it, letting my attention go through it, rather than bouncing off. So letting yourself play with, oh, how would I be willing to welcome? So the first, am I willing to welcome this? Because I also have like, no, I know this should just definitely not be happening, and I am not welcoming it, and you cannot make me welcome it. So could be a place where you could play with it, like, Yeah, I can welcome that. No, fuck no, I'm not welcoming that. And so let yourself play with that a little bit because we often try to hurt ourselves around this would be much better for you to do. If you did this, life would work much better. Where you're going, no, no, I'm not ready. I don't want to. So I find it incredibly valuable to let myself play with I want to welcome, and I'm not going to welcome, until things improve. There's no welcoming going on over here. So, however, and go ahead and let yourself blurt with that. Let yourself play with the thoughts that you have about it, and let yourself go back and forth from welcoming, welcoming, no, and letting that oscillation occur, I think is it kind of gets out the debris inside. So please give yourself a minute or so to do that. And I realized that I almost always do my welcoming with my left hand. So I'm going to make a switch here and do my welcoming, play with welcoming with my right hand. Oh, and I feel all kinds of sensations. So as you're doing this, you're waking up sensations that might have been dormant or that had just been sort of in the fog, and so they might come forward. And so as you're tuning into that, how can you let yourself continue giving attention to that in you, and also what is particularly what happens for you, because right now there's so much attention about what's going on in the world. Today I really want to focus on what's going on inside you in response to all of that. So with that, playing with welcoming and not welcoming, and letting yourself play with what happens to the sensations and the emotions in you as you're welcoming. You can add in some fear melters. So you could add in, particularly wiggling is a really a great way to open up the static and move all of that through you. Ah. So what's your favorite non-welcoming move? Mine is to get kind of rigid and huffy. It's my in what we call going below the line. That's my favorite, is that I get sort of, I get sort of judgmental and huffy. So you can do welcoming and then your persona that shows up when you're trying to welcome, like, I'm noticing nobody else is welcoming. So your policeman or your judge might show up. So you can go ahead and let yourself play with that, and then welcoming when there have been times in my life when I've been able to welcome something really huge, some big shift, some big loss. And then I've finally been able to welcome that. There's an opening in particularly in my receptivity, so that I'm able to receive caring, I'm able to receive attention, I'm able to give attention to myself because I'm not using all of that to just block not wanting to feel what's going on underneath my not welcoming. So the big thing I'd love for you to play with this week and maybe going forward, because who knows how long welcoming is going to be needed, but also um, how come I'm the only one who's welcoming and nobody else is welcoming? So I can get into my policeman and to responsibility issues. But if you just simply let your hands play with welcoming, what are welcoming moves? And how can I let that welcoming attention move through my body? And then my default, where I either upper limit or I don't want to do it, or I feel overwhelmed, or I go into fear. What's your favorite move? And letting yourself actually do it so you can notice it when it's happening, so that it doesn't have to turn into a sledgehammer. We say the universe gives you information first with a feather and then with a sledgehammer. So I've had the sledgehammer many times and have come to actually prefer the feather. So letting yourself play with that. And then just taking a moment to notice which of the fear melters are calling for you right now. So for me, wiggling is my first one because that's easiest to do. And that might go into some others. So you might have some love scoops that come up for you, or rooting. I've been giving lots of attention to my feet, especially over there. And I could tell that my feet, my toes were gripping, or my feet were trying to launch off, like, beam me up, Scotty. That guy just, an ultimate flea move. So there's so much going on right now uh, for us to orient to and to integrate. So welcoming and not welcoming, and then adding in fear melters. As I do that, I'm much more able to give attention to myself rather than bouncing off. And my sense is that giving loving attention to yourself right now is really essential. So playing with the I want to and I don't want to, and at the end of that, I always find that I open up more flow. So for me, I'm particularly noticing it across my shoulders. So my anger zone is flowing a little bit more than it was. And giving, not just bullying yourself, but just lightly giving yourself attention from time to time. I'd love for you to add that focus to yourself this week. And then let's take a look at our card. So our card for today goes with, now I want you to know that I just picked this card, and then when I started talking to you, I didn't know what I was going to be saying, and so I'm just really appreciating how all of these are going together. I love that when I just let myself flow with what's wanting to come through. So as you let your attention go into this, taking that same welcoming what you're seeing, or letting yourself not let your attention go into the card. And then when you bring your attention back to you and noticing what goes on in you when you're responding to or receiving what you're seeing in the card. So I'd like you to just lightly let your attention shift to the card, and then shift to your own body sensations and the movement of energy in you, and your breath. And I'd like you to continue doing that. Well, first I'll read the sentence. I am curious to discover and learn from my feelings and inner experience. I am curious to discover and learn from my feelings and inner experience. So I just made a little edit for the next time we revise these cards. I get curious. So I may not be curious. In fact, I'm probably not going to be curious to begin with. So I get curious to discover and learn from my feelings, inner experience, because you can get curious. You don't need to wait for it to arrive. You can go, and shift from your critical brain to your wonder brain. You can do some love scoops or other fear melters that allow you to get curious. So the question is, how can I learn to locate emotions accurately in my body? Anger in my neck and shoulders, sadness in my chest and throat, and fear in my belly. I think my hypothesis is that if people were able to actually locate their sensations and emotions, that it would unwind a whole lot of the static and the just the obstacles and the quagmire that we're in right now. So I can see when I look at the picture, I can see some representations of each of those emotions. But what I also see behind that is flow. And when I let myself welcome, that is one of the best ways to let curiosity begin to unthaw, and also to locate what's going on, because anger has to do with a fundamental unfairness or injustice. So I'm imagining, I've been experiencing a lot of anger, over the last several months. And what I do is let myself, I sort the two files and then I take a look at what actions can I take that are in my under my influence or my ability to control that will counter injustice and sadness. I also I let my I usually I cry at least once a day. There's something that affects me or I feel touched by. Letting yourself cry is so, and letting people know. I let people know, listen, I'm gonna probably cry. And and I want to invite you to let yourself feel, because there's so much loss that's going on right now. And then of course fear is the real specialty that I've been focusing on for at least the last 10 years, because I really think that fear plus contempt plus adrenaline is the context that's being promoted right now, in the collective. And so this is a card from emotional literacy. And what it's really about is being able to locate yourself in the flow of feeling and to be able to welcome feeling rather than being freaked out by feeling. So let's come on back to the big group. There was something I wanted to share with you about feeling, and particularly about, for me, anger was the big one that had been difficult for me to handle, especially when other people would show up angry. I would internalize that and I would try to hero them, or I would get freaked out and I'd go hide, or I'd go faint. And I remember back in Colorado Springs, where I had a client who was almost 7 feet tall, and he was sort of like baby Huey. He was this, that's a very old reference for people from the very, very old days, but he was this giant guy and he was very angry. And one day he was yelling at me and I just pulled out a chair and I climbed up on the chair and I yelled back at him. And it was the moment where everything shifted for me, that I was not controlled by his anger, and I was able to mobilize the energy that was under my anger. And it was also a breakthrough for him, because he used his anger to bully people in his size. And so underneath his anger, of course, was a lot of sadness. And so he immediately, when I yelled at him, immediately he turned into, sort of this blubbering, he sort of melted. And so underneath our feelings is flow. And that flow allows us to mobilize our creativity and our ability to respond. And so welcoming, and how we do that also is having people go more in the direction that you're going, rather than going, uh-oh, I'm angry, I shouldn't be angry. Oh dear, people aren't going to like me. I'm going to just explode. I'm going to blow up the world. We catastrophize. But if you let yourself actually occupy that, you're liberating a lot of flow. So this is a place uh, where all of your feelings are welcome. And I'd like you to be a welcoming, so that where you show up, other people feel safe to be real. And that's one of the results that can come from welcoming, and not just at a conceptual level, but at a whole body and an interactional level. So take a moment to notice if you've generated more vitality. I've generated more vitality, yeah, more flow, more, like ability to not just, sometimes I wake up and I go, okay, this is a day where I just feel like going back to bed. So sometimes I'll just let myself play with that for 5 minutes or so. I'll just go under the covers, and I won't let any light in, and I'll just be in there sort of grumbling to myself or whatever is going on. And then I'll peek out and then, no, I'm not ready to come back. So you can let this be part of your exploration, rather than, okay, now it's time to get up and you just got to get on the gerbil wheel and go. So welcoming can also just create a lot more fun for you, a lot more play. Because play doesn't always have to be la, 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 la. Play is letting yourself just toss and notice what wants to happen and go with that. Okay, so let me take a look here at Presence Connect Play. Michelle just let me know that we have created all of the videos that we need for the website that's in the background for Presence Connect Play. So to let you know that not only for you, but also for your clients, we have such a rich resource for you to shift from, the reactivity and fear response into Presence Connect Play, and to shift from the drama triangle, of the hero, the victim, and the villain, which if you're not doing Presence Connect Play, you're probably on the triangle. And so the alternative is to let yourself practice whenever you think of it, practicing Presence Connect Play. So I have, since one of the apps on my phone that I actually use, I have about 30 apps on my phone. The other day I went, oh my God, I didn't even know I had this whole thing about taking care of plants. And no, because, I hadn't used it as, so confessions, true confessions. So, all right. So presence. Oh, this is a great thing to do. Notice your breath and your body sensations, and then notice others in the room. So this is a loop of awareness, but it's a particular kind of loop of awareness that I find very effective, because breath is one of the first clues to see whether somebody is in fear and reactivity, or is open to welcoming connection. And if I'm noticing breath and then I'm noticing my breath, my shifting my breath will automatically give space to the other person to shift their breath. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to intervene. I don't have to make comments about what they're doing, and have any kind of critique about what they're doing. So that is a very quick ticket to presence, just noticing. And the power of noticing also creates for you what we call the witness. So you're not inside of your experience, you're bigger than your experience, able to give attention to your experience and be with your experience. It opens up your multidimensionality. And connect is yes, and then add an appreciation. So yes and is, I think there's actually a show that's where people are playing with yes and. Yes and is an improv technique where it's actually a welcoming. So when something comes at you, rather than going, no, you didn't say that right, or you didn't use the right words, or the timing isn't right, it's a yes. And the yes is an acknowledgement of this is what's coming right now. Yes. Yes, I hear some irritation in your voice, and I'm appreciating. So the adding the appreciating, I'm appreciating that you are willing to share that with me. Or it could be an appreciation for you. So yes, and I'm appreciating that I could just take a breath rather than freezing up. Or so when you do yes and, it is in contrast to what people usually do is yes but. Yes, I heard you say that that I spilled sugar all over the counter, but you left the refrigerator open last night. So, there's a yes, but, that defensive response. So shifting from yes, but to yes, and is an incredibly useful practice. And so that might be one that you want to take a look at, all of the videos, the possibilities of experimenting with that. And then play. Oh, play, one of my favorites, modify your experience for a moment before speaking. So what this does, if somebody's talking to you and you can feel like there's a lot of stuff coming at you, and you don't quite know what it is. So rather than fight is usually the response that is like, yeah, and you too. And and instead, if you let yourself just butterfly, like, whoa, a just a moment, and it can be with your fingers, it can be a little movement, or it could be a big like, whoa, and then letting yourself do that before you speak. It opens the flow of your whole body wisdom and your whole body thinking, and allows you to begin to play with what's going on rather than going into that defensive. And we are going to get defensive. I mean, I think that's, if you're not being defensive right now, you need that as well. So it's not like, oh, it's all going to be all right. We have no idea if it's all going to be all right, but you can create your own well-being by giving attention to your own response first, locating yourself, and bodifying for me is so much more effective. It's faster because if I'm trying to think about how I'm going to respond, I'm already way behind what's happening in me. But if I bodify, I immediately, like on this one, just doing that, I got goosebumps. I felt my breath expand. I'm feeling flow up the back of my body. So I'm opening up my resources. So we have such a prejudice against moving. We've been, over particularly the last several years, people are moving less and less. And so that's going to make you very head centric and overloaded in your head. And so if you let yourself bodify first, you're also opening up permission for whoever you're with to be a little bit more weird than they probably let themselves be. So that's our exploration for today. And one of the things I want to appreciate about all of you being here and being in connection is that we are co-creating this together. So as I'm tuning into you, I'm getting ideas from you, and I'm getting from how you are being adds to what we're exploring together. So give yourself some appreciation for showing up, for your commitment to connecting, and let yourself take that into your day and into your interactions with others. So how about we end with here I am, and I'm so glad. So for me, that's a welcoming. Here I am, and however you're here, here you are, and however you would like to, I'm so glad. I can feel the back of my neck saying, ah, I'm so glad. So thank you, and thank you for your presence, and thank you for your commitment, and love to see all of you, and wishing you a very vibrant and playful time. So I'm
Thank
going
you,
to,
Katie.
yeah, thank you all. And stay and play as long as you like. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Mwah. Bye now.